The AYANEO Pocket Micro, inspired by the Game Boy Advance Micro, brings Android-based gaming to a small form factor gaming handheld with an AYANEO twist. Let's find out if the Micro deserves your money as we check out its features, find out the system, gaming and emulation performance, as well as compare with other Android-based handhelds. The AYANEO Pocket Micro measures 6.1 by 2.4 by 0.7 inches and weighs 233 grams. The shell is aluminium alloy, which gives it a very solid premium feel and does feel heavier than it looks. At this size it's pocketable, though you may want to keep this in a jacket pocket or bag due to the analog sticks. Display is a 3.5-inch borderless IPS touchscreen with a 960 by 640 resolution. This is exactly 4 times the resolution of the original Game Boy Advance. On the front we have the usual gaming controls with Hall effect analog sticks. On the bottom left and right edges are 2 pairs of buttons for select and start, IR overlay and home. The bottom has a USB Type-C port supporting USB 2 OTG. The left side has a covered micro SD card reader. The right side has some macro buttons. The top has a pair of shoulder and trigger buttons on either side. And off centre to the right are a power button with integrated fingerprint scanner and volume buttons. I thought I had the red and gold GBA Micro for comparison, but it turns out I've got the silver one. You can see some inspiration in the shape and with the select and start buttons on the curved sides. Like the AYANEO Pocket DMG, it's not intended to be a replica, but more of an inspired design. The AYANEO Pocket Micro features the MediaTek Helio G99 processor with Arm Mali-G57 MC2 GPU. We have seen this in a few handhelds such as the Kitty and is aimed towards the slightly lower end of budget and performance for Android handhelds. There are options of 6 or 8 gigs LPDDR4x RAM and 1 to 8 gigs or 256 gigs of UFS 2.2 storage depending on the RAM option. For communications there is Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 5.2. Powering it all is a 2600 mAh rechargeable battery. To test the battery life we ran AnTuTu benchmark on a loop at full brightness with the performance mode setting. We got a battery life of 3 hours. Average battery use will be up to 6 hours depending on what apps you are running. In our fan noise and temperature tests, also performed whilst running AnTuTu, we had to put up our ear to the fan grill to actually hear if the fan was spinning. You would not be able to hear it in the average office area, and even in a quiet room it's hard to hear anything. For temperatures we got 46 degrees C, mainly coming from the display rather than the exhaust grill. As always with Android gaming handhelds, we run a few benchmarks to find out its performance and also compare it with other handhelds. Unfortunately, we didn't have any other G99 based devices, so we have included some similar popular performing devices, as well as AYANEO's premium priced and performance Pocket S handheld. Geekbench 5 tests the CPU single and multi-core performance. Compared with the far lower price Retroid Pocket 2S and similar price RG Cube, we see around the expected performance. Far higher than the Pocket 2S at 43% difference and below the RG Cube with a 14% difference on single core performance. For Geekbench 6 we unfortunately do not have scores for the Pocket 2S, but we can see around a 16% difference in performance between the RG Cube and Pocket Micro for single core and around 19% for multi-core. With AnTuTu, which performs a variety of tests for everyday use of an Android device, we again see the Pocket Micro in the middle of the three. There is a 56% difference increase compared to the Pocket 2S and 15% difference compared to the RG Cube. And in our final test with 3D Mark, on Slingshot we see decent increases in performance over the 2S, but a larger 33% difference with the RG Cube. And for the Wildlife Extreme benchmark, we again see a good difference between the Pocket 2S and around a 48% difference to the RG Cube. Overall we see good scores for the AYANEO Pocket Micro. It outperforms the Retroid Pocket 2S, which has a 35% lower difference in price. But we see the Anbernic RG Cube come out on top. with a higher performance and a lower cost of around 15% difference. The RG Cube may be a lower cost and higher performance, but the overall quality is not premium, unlike the Pocket Micro. The Android 13 OS comes fairly bare bones with the usual Android apps including the Google Play Store and AYANEO's custom software. With the AYANEO home software, you have access to a front end for games as well as a range of settings for the OS and device. You will need to set up the game ROM front end, which can take a little time but is worth it. And with the AYA overlay, with a swipe of your finger you have easy access to a bunch of information such as the FPS, temperature and fan speeds, as well as shortcuts to change performance modes, controller settings and more. Their software gives a more premium look and use than other manufacturers such as Anbernic, AYN and DROIX. With the lower performance processor compared to say the AYANEO Pocket S, you can still play a decent number of games. And for games that are not controller compatible, you can use the built-in screen mapping software. Simply access it from the overlay and drag the icons to their respective on-screen areas that you want to simulate screen presses with. It is quick and easy to set up and use it as it should be. We were very surprised by the emulation performance for the AYANEO Pocket Micro. Going by the processor's performance, we had a general expectation of what emulators should run well, but keep watching for some impressive results. Naturally, all of your 8, 16 and 32-bit consoles, computers and handhelds are going to run great. Where possible, you can increase the rendering resolution and add graphics enhancements, etc. PPSS-PP is a great emulator, and we were able to set the rendering resolution to 3x with no frame skipping, 16x and isotropic filtering and some other tweaks on God of War. We got a solid 60 FPS, which is great to see. On either SX2, our go-to game Outrun was sadly unplayable, even at half rendering resolution. We had better luck with Gran Turismo 3 at half rendering resolution. Depending on how demanding the game is, you can go up to 0.75 or 1x resolution on lower ones. We got decent results on the Citra emulator. We tried a bunch of games and many were perfectly playable. There are some drops in frames and shader cache lags in more demanding games, but overall they were very playable afterwards. Our go-to trippy game TXK on the Vita 3K emulator ran perfectly, and we could increase the rendering resolution to 2x. With Street Fighter Cross Tekken we had to run at normal resolution, and overall we saw good frame rates with some occasional caching lags. Impressive. Our last emulator is the now discontinued Yuzu emulator. At 1x resolution on Cruising Blast, it was averaging around 30 to 40 frames per second, which, given the processor, is very good. If you lower the resolution to half, then we can get as high as 50 frames per second. Don't expect many games to play this well, but you can get some decent results from lower demanding games. Before I got my hands on the AYANEO Pocket Micro, I was unsure whether this would be a worthwhile Android handheld, but after spending some time with it, my impressions have pushed it towards being a handheld to consider. Here is why. Let's first start with the performance. Despite having a lower end processor, it actually does a great job. We saw good performance in the benchmarks, though not as good as the lower cost Anbernic RG Cube. But when actually running emulators, we saw decent performance for PS2, Citra and Yuzu, and great results with Vita 3K. The more premium quality in terms of look and feel is what sets it apart from the Anbernic RG Cube. We have a CNC aluminium alloy frame on the Micro, compared with a plastic shell on the Cube. You also have the AYA software, which works very well and looks great. One thing I do need to mention is the screen size. At 3.5 inches it is on the small side. While setting up all of the emulators and playing some games, I did find it hard to read some text, especially on the more modern emulated systems. When you do get to a certain age, your eyes don't cope so well with small screens and small text. So it's something to be aware of, and you may want to opt for a larger display. With these in mind, we can recommend the AYANEO Pocket Micro for your older retro gaming requirements, say up to the PlayStation era. And for newer systems, your results may vary in terms of performance, but there's definitely scope to enjoy them if your eyesight allows it. And the size and form factor is great for a jacket pocket or bag in terms of portability. If you are in the market for a premium pocketable Android handheld for some retro gaming, the AYANEO Pocket Micro is an excellent option. You can learn more about the AYANEO Pocket Micro and order yours today from us at DROIX. Visit droix.co.uk or droix.net for worldwide shipping. And if you found this review helpful, please subscribe to keep up to date with the many reviews and videos coming up that you won't want to miss out on. Drop a comment below with your favourite retro handheld. I'd love to hear what you're gaming on. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.